Very, very happy to have Abra Annes with us, a friend of HGA for a long time. My brother Jason, Trevor Nelson, HGA Fundraising. Thanks so much once again, everybody, for coming. We're going to talk about, well, Abra was on our podcast a couple weeks back and said some really, really interesting things, shared some really, really interesting stuff with us. And that was what kind of spurred the idea to have her on the webinar, so we could talk about surveying for your success, how data-driven engagement with your attendees and a myriad of different data points can help you plan and engage with folks for future success. So we're really happy to have Abra on to affectionately get in the weeds with us about this, so we can all learn and leave, with an understanding, a clear understanding, get all the questions out of the way, whatever you have. If you have any questions, obviously Q&A function at the bottom, chat feature. Viewing this as recording, please leave them for us on YouTube.
Yeah, and comments, good, bad, or indifferent. We want to hear them.
Yeah. Let us know.
If you agree, if you disagree, we want to hear it all.
Yeah, absolutely. What was interesting, Abra, we'll let you take it away and everything. Thanks so much for
hold on just a second. Hold on just a second. Just for those of you that don't know, because I know that she is kind of a rock star presence in the fundraising world, but for those of you who don't know, Abra is an extremely successful charity auctioneer. And she does a lot more than just get up there and talk fast.
Has been for a long time.
She raised a lot of money. She consults with organizations, has done it. If you look her up, Abra Annes on YouTube, you're going to pull up about 1,000 videos where she talks about all the stuff that we try to talk about all the way. She's been doing it for a long time and recently relocated. I will say she came from coast to coast. She went from California, being up in the Bay Area, all the way now she's in Florida. So if you need somebody, she is a real rock star, tremendous fundraiser, and so we're really glad to have it.
I'm sorry for not obviously saying those things. I thought everyone knew those things about Abra.
That's what I mean. She's kind of a rock star. It's kind of like
flatter me.
Do you know who Elton John is?
Well, what was interesting though, when we were on the podcast, and then Jason and I talked about it later, and then Courtney from our team reached out to you to come on the webinar. You were talking about engaging folks in attendance, whether they were in the back of the room, the front of the room. And that was the one thing that was very interesting to me. Is like, even if they weren't the biggest givers, and the folks were in the back of the room, or what, you wanted to know what their experience was. Correct me if I'm off, if I'm not correct in that. Absolutely. You wanted to know what their experience was, not just the folks in the front of the room and the biggest givers. And just like, how can we make the event next year? And you always talk about, like, I'm hitting that $150,000 mark or what have you, or I'm hitting the $250,000 mark, but we want to raise $350,000. How do we get over the hump? And you're talking about data-driven surveys and asking the right questions, because obviously if we're not getting the right answers or the right solutions, we're probably not asking good enough questions. So that's what kind of just inspired this conversation. So thankful that you're here. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Well, for everyone who's online listening, whether it's now or in the future, I've been in your shoes. I've been a development director. I sit on a board. I've been on a committee. And so often nonprofits do things the same way they've done them before, because that's how we've always done it. Or we talked to our board and our board said it was great. And the truth about nonprofits is we have a limited amount of staff time. We have a limited amount of time available to us in general. And it is easier to talk to the people we already know. It's easy to talk to your board president and pick up the phone and be like, what'd you think of the gala? Or talk to the committee in a quick debrief. But the truth is, the people closest to us are not always going to be the most honest, nor are they going to be with us the longest. As a nonprofit professional, we have to work on filling the pipeline of donors. And a lot of our mid to low level donors, depends on your type of organization, but usually it's like, I consider it like $10,000 and below is a low level or a mid-level donor. For you, it could be $1,000 and below. It doesn't really matter, but their opinion matters too. So often we cultivate our events for like the top row, the front row of tables. It's our board president, our chairman, our honoree, and major donor number 492. And we ignore everyone in the back. And I don't believe in doing that. I believe to have a really successful, strong fundraising event, and I've done this with tons of my clients, we have to really pay attention to the room as a whole. So I believe in sending out surveys all the time. And most importantly, after your event, to understand what the people in the room, everyone in the room, thought about your event. I want to know if they donated, if they And if they did donate, what moved them to donate? I want to know, is this their first donation, their second donation? Is this their second donation this year? Did they already donate to the annual campaign? And I also want to know, if you didn't donate, what happened? What mark did we miss? And the last thing I think we should ask people is, why did you decide to come? Did you come because you saw a poster, you were on Eventbrite, or because somebody asked you? And I think understanding the nuance other than ticket sales is very important for moving our fundraising event, no matter what it is, from point A over the fundraising hump to get to the reach goal, to get to your amazing goal where you really, really want to be.
Yeah. Love that.
Abra, you said something I thought
Preach.
was really, really good. Was you were talking about, we do all this stuff for the front row. And 30 years ago, when I started doing my first charity auctions and stuff like that, I would go to a lady that I knew. It was a lot different back then. I would go and I'd say, "Hey, where's the money at?" And she'd say, "Well, this table here and this and this and this." And 9 times out of 10, nobody in those front tables ever raised their hand because they'd already written their big check and there wasn't anything we were doing in the auction that they really wanted. But it's some guy in the back row who gets invited and we've never heard from, didn't know who he was, and he raises his hands and spends $10, $15, $20,000. Why? And we missed that whole opportunity. And I've seen it happen since then a lot, over all these years. And we missed that opportunity to ask that question, to engage with that person, to get them through the finish line. Because what we miss out on, and I think this is where you're going with what happens in these surveys. Funny thing, I'm driving down the road 2 days ago, talking to somebody on the phone, and somehow on my phone, I FaceTime a guy.
I remember you saying this.
And I look at this and I go, "Aaron?" Well, his name's Aaron. He was invited to a gala. This has been 6, 7, 8 years ago. He and his wife didn't know anything about the organization, nothing. But it got to they listened to the mission moment. They gave, they donated, but the organization followed up and engaged with them. Absolutely. In a powerful way. And guess what? He said, he goes, "I think we're supposed to talk." He goes, "I'm the chair of the event this year." Right. So all of a sudden he and his wife are chairing the thing.
Isn't that crazy?
So I think that's where this goes, is to who in the world, like you said, you've got limited amount of time.
Absolutely.
If you've got a limited amount of time and you're trying to engage, and we want to, we preach about having a program of gratuity, plan to thank people.
Yeah.
But then you're going, well, how do I thank people? Well, who do I do it? But this is a really good way. And the other thing that I thought was real interesting, you kind of taken this whole survey thing to another level, because you don't do it after the event. You recommend doing it at the event.
I would do it that night, as people walk out. I mean, you can the technology exists, and why nonprofits are here to do it, I don't know. But you can literally send somebody a 5-question questionnaire, and there are just come in a text. Or
it could already be pre-done. It could already be preloaded, the whole 9.
It should be pre-done and preloaded. Yeah. I'll add one more data point that you should be collecting that is not technically a survey. My favorite thing to tell people who are having a live auction is you should have somebody in the front of the room, volunteer. It's an easy job. They should be writing down the bid numbers of your second, third, and fourth place bidder. Mm-hmm. Because if that person is willing to raise their hand for $5,000, you should be probably having a conversation with them.
You should know that person.
They didn't win the trip, but they should be on your radar. And sometimes those people fly underneath our radar. But by the way, you could sell them a second trip, a third trip. You could engage with them, ask them out to lunch. There are so many little pieces of data that we need to be collecting at our event to make sure that we know how to improve ourselves for next year. Because the number one thing that people come to me with is fundraising numbers that go down, they go up, they go down, they go up. And I like to see people on a steady upward trajectory. How heart-wrenching, how nerve-wracking must it be to be are we gonna have an up year or a down year? I don't know. What's gonna happen? You should know.
It's a hard, whenever they sit there and you look over and they go, "I really hope we do good this year." And they got their fingers crossed. And I'm like, well, this isn't the time to be thinking about that.
Totally.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So Abra, I have I would like, do you have maybe one that comes to mind, or an example where somebody used this strategy, did a survey, reacted to what, what the information that they got from the survey, implemented a strategy around it and saw success after?
Absolutely. So I work a lot with private schools, probably because I'm a mom and my kids one of my kids goes to private school. So I understand the dynamic and the relationship. So private schools have a unique fundraising hurdle already, which is their donors eventually leave. They age out, right? Like their kid graduates 8th grade and the donor magically disappears. So I had a client come to me. It's a private school in Wisconsin, and very similar. Also in California, they had a very similar situation, and they had an event that was very low energy, and they couldn't get the mission of their organization across. For some reason, their parents were coming back to them and saying, I don't understand what you need XYZ for. I don't understand what you need. And I don't even understand why you're asking me for more money, because schools typically have an annual campaign in the fall and a fundraiser in the spring. That's typically how it's done. So we looked at their data and we combed through mountains of data. I like to look at how many people came, how many people donated, how many people did not donate, how many people are in your top 10%, how many people are in your bottom 20%. And the truth is, in my opinion, although I think it's universally true, that if you have $1,000 to donate, you probably have $2,000 to donate. And if you have 5,000, you probably have like 8,000. So we looked through all this data and we saw a couple things come to the forefront. Number one, the auction items that they really sold well had to do with teachers at their school. Now, this is not specific to schools, but I think it ties back to the bigger idea of the auction items that sell well for me historically are really unique items that you can't get anywhere else. Sometimes that's a trip, sometimes that's a sleepover with the principal. It really depends. Sometimes we pair a trip to Mexico or Hawaii with the favorite teacher babysitting for a week, right? Like there's different ways to tie those things together. And so what we did is we took all the extra nonsense out of their life and we filled it with things that people actually wanted and that were tied back to the school, which bumped up their live numbers hugely. And the other thing that came out in the data was that all these people who did not donate really wanted to understand exactly where their money was going to go. Now, I'm not a huge fan of project-based funded needs, but I do them occasionally when the time is right. And when I mean project-based, I mean like new playground or new iPads.
Elevator for the school or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we planned it out. So this school wanted, I forget what it's called. It's like modular furniture that you could move around so they could like take their desks and go to the corner for quiet time and bring them together for group time. And this is a really hard concept to sell, but the idea was that parents weren't going to be able to understand it in 5 minutes on the stage. So we had it in cocktail hour and it was right near the bar and you got to sit in it, touch it, excuse me. And we were there explaining to you why this was better. And so we used that data point, which was, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand why you need that money. And we translated that into a very real world hands-on experience. And their funded need grossed over $150,000 by that one change. It went up double.
Wow.
And it's basically the same people in the room, but changing that one data point. I also have a school that asked for more ways to spend money in the silent auction. Okay. So we gave them more ways to spend money in the silent auction. Not only were there more, we added in buy-in parties, we added in games, we added in raffles. So there are people who want to spend their money in different ways. Absolutely. I think though, the thing that what I hear most of all in all the surveys is people want to feel appreciated. The number one reason people don't come back is they didn't feel appreciated for their gift, or no one talked to them, which is kind of
thank them. There was no gratitude.
Right. And I think that sending a survey is a great first step, but using that as a entry point to have a conversation, ask these deeper questions with your donors is so important.
Silly question. I think all lovely points. So good. Do you think sometimes there's trepidation? Like, do you think that, because I'm going to go ahead. I'm an optimist, glass half full, all the above. Most folks are good natured in my viewpoint. And especially when they're, at the organizational level and whatnot, they're, we were talking about before we came on, they're overworked. appreciated themselves and this and that. Do you think there's this trepidation like, I don't want to bug them, or, oh, gee, and they're not thinking that their opinion doesn't matter, but they don't realize that it's the opposite that's true, actually, because what you're talking about, your recipe here with the surveys and being data driven and engagement as a whole and gratitude, you're basically talking about being high touch. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that that's the way to go about it. And then Jason and I always talk about it. Apologies for being long-winded. We talk about this all the time. Hey, you're running a nonprofit, or you're running a school, or you're a 501c3. Jason always says that's a tax designation. You're still running a business. They're your donors. They're your supporters. You don't have to call them customers. You don't have to give them that moniker, but you need to treat it like a business. And these are the people that are giving you the resources that you need to stay in business. So why wouldn't you be high touch, especially nowadays, right? I mean, with the fact that everything's so high touch, you know what I mean? Just makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. And I also think that there is a high touch does not mean you have to ask for something every single time.
Yeah, we're actually saying don't do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with you. But a lot of people
asking for info, for feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. People want to give you their opinion.
Yes.
Most people want to help.
Yes.
But I will add a big caveat, but one of the biggest problems I see that my clients come to me for, and people typically come to me when they are stuck at like 150, 200, 250, and they are trying to get to 350, 400, $500,000. Like that is my sweet spot. That's my client. I have bigger ones. I have smaller ones, sure, but that's my sweet spot.
Yep.
And a lot of people think, I don't know how to say this. I have like a lot of out there opinions, as you know.
No, we like that though. Yeah, we like that.
A lot of people believe that the more people you have in the room, like the better the event is. And I don't always believe that that is true. Yeah. Sometimes I believe you have to have a smaller event, a more focused event. And that's why data is important. How many people are in the room just sitting there drinking? And by the way, you're not profit. Those people, their butts in the seat, that is an invitation you sent out. That's your staff time. That is a meal. That is
There's
service.
Fixed costs there. There's fixed costs there. Yeah.
Fixed costs. And so if we're not turning these people into donors, maybe they shouldn't be there. And maybe we need like a party that is just a party. And maybe we need a smaller, more exclusive fundraising event. And the purpose of looking into this data is to make sure that you are using your resources wisely. The number one thing that I tell people is I want to know if your auctioneer or whoever's helping you fundraise can't tell you that you're going to be successful, you have to figure it out for yourself. I don't want you to spend money on me unless I know I can help you. Otherwise, what am I, like, guessing? We're just going to guess together? What is that? Like, you have to come to me and I can say, yes, there's money in the room. These are the 3 things I think we can fix that'll make a big difference. And we have to commit to, if you've never sent out a survey, you have to commit to that, because otherwise we're just kind of like doing the same thing over and over and just hoping it gets better.
I have a quick question. Jay, do you have a question you've been waiting on? I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, I want to ask you, because
go ahead.
And we're going to send out, we're not putting it up here today because we want to just really engage with Abra, but she's got a slide deck that we're going to share with everybody. It's going to go out with the recording.
And some additional fund to need.
There was something that you said, use what you have to plan for success. And I really like, you said, the top 10% of guests, in other words, your top 10% of givers, but you also said the bottom 20%. Focus on that for me, why you think that's so important and why you think that's a missed opportunity for nonprofits. I mean, we've been kind of talking about it around it, but I'd like to really drill into that.
Okay. First of all, thank you for picking up on that. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, because in the nonprofit world, we're trained to just focus on the low-hanging fruit, the big donors. I'm a big proponent of training our donors to be philanthropic. But to me, philanthropy does not equal big dollars. It just means making a meaningful gift. So whether that's $20 or $50, that's okay. Sometimes the monthly donors, the smaller donations that are sustained are the most important donors that we have. They are the lifeblood of our organization. Those donations come in every single month.
Consistent.
Or every single year. Exactly. They are passionate about you with the resources they have. Focusing on them, I think, sends a very interesting message. So I always think about, how do we make everyone in the room feel special? How do we make people feel that this idea of philanthropy is attainable? So one of my favorite ways to do that is change up your honoree. Everyone honors the richest dude in the county, the richest dude in the classroom. I'm so sick of this. I'm like so bored of the richest dude in the county.
They've probably been honored before, probably. Yeah.
I'm sure their shelves are filled with acrylic garbage.
Yeah.
But I would rather have you honor somebody who's been donating continuously for 25 years. I don't care how much, but show people that you appreciate everyone in the community for what they have to donate, because that's what a nonprofit organization is supposed to do. We're supposed to be like equal opportunity. And so often it doesn't feel like that. It feels like this very lopsided table, like it's always like in San Francisco. I was part of this organization for years. They had this very, 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 very 1% lady who was loaded. And she was on stage and she was the co-host of everything. And eventually a few of us were like, we're never going to get a turn. Like some of us are waiting our turn patiently. It's never going to come. So we took our skills to another organization. And I think that we have to spread this message of we care about you for more than just the dollar amount. And you could honor people for their time, for their commitment, for how they participate, for how much they comment on social media, how much they show up for you. But the bottom 20% oftentimes surprises you. There are lots of documented research cases, or I don't know, cases.
Case studies.
Studies where low-level donors, very low-level donors consistently have left huge sums of money in their estates to nonprofits. And if we fail to cultivate, if we fail to cultivate these donors, if we never let them sit up front, they're always at table 45 in the back. Like it's just not fair. And I think that shifting things up freshens things up and it gives people a new perspective. Try putting your big donors in the back, putting your not so big donors up front, seeing what that does to the room. Put your status. I like to put like a pop-up stage in the middle so I can do it in the round.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
But everyone has to start from somewhere. And you never know when someone's going to have a big windfall or leave you a huge gift or who they know or what connections they have. So I think ignoring the bottom 20% is a huge loss. However, I would get rid of at your event people who donate zero. I think people who show up, drink, eat, party, and distract from your purpose, you can cut them free from your event, not from your database, but I wouldn't invite them back. So that's not the bottom 20% of donors. That's just like they're
consumers. Yeah, they're just the eaters and drinkers, not the givers. You know, I think there's one thing about within that's good, Abra. Something that you're talking about, Abra, in that bottom 20% too. Like when we work with somebody and do a people exercise, the 3 questions are: can they write a check for $10,000 and not miss it? So that just means that they have capacity to give. And we're just saying, who do we know? Who do we know? Okay. But the second thing is, could they fill a table with people that could come and make a meaningful donation? Are they connected? Do they have a Rolodex? You know, that kind of thing. Do they have special access? There's a lot of people in that bottom 20% that have been given $100 a month for the last 5 years, but they have access to something. You know, their niece is an astronaut. I don't know. It's just, there's going to be some kind of access that you don't have, that you're missing out on this awesome opportunity
by not asking.
You've never had a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And they don't know that they have it either. It's not like they're sitting back there going, well, they're not going to ask me because I would let them know that my niece
I'm in table 45.
You know, but that's not, they're not even thinking, because they don't think that it's needed. Number one.
Yeah.
Well, they don't need a little person like me. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, we miss out on that. And you made this one of our clients, that a lady,
Jan, right? It was Jan, wasn't it?
Yeah. For 25 years, this lady gave like $100 a year to some, you know, it was less than $1,000 a year. But when she passed, she left, it was like a $5 million estate, and it all went to the organization.
That's not the only time that story's ever been told. That's
because, for sure, right? And it happens all the time, because they consciously, she knew what they were doing. She knew the mission. She understood it. And at the end of her time, that's what she wanted to fulfill.
Can I interject and ask a question? I'm gonna share an experience, but I also want to ask a question, Abra. You know, we've built the business kind of in the same, our company in the same vein, like what we tell our entire staff and what have you over and over and over again. You never know who you're talking to. So you just treat everyone the same, with dignity, with respect, by helping first, talking second. You know what I mean? Like that's hard for me sometimes, but not the help part, but the talking part. But you never know who you're talking to, right? And you never know if that one person runs an event, but then they know someone that has 500 events. So, okay, here we go. You know what I mean? And that has happened to us so many times. And I used to just think it was like, oh, that was the universe working in our favor. And what I believe in now is if you give all that time and engagement and attention, it's reciprocity, not with expectation, but that's just how the world works. It works in that cyclical function, and it's been proven to me time and time again. What I'm asking, what the question I want to get to though is, you don't treat the bottom 20% of donors differently than the top, correct? That's what we're saying, correct? I mean, I know some people require a little more attention, or is that what you're saying, and why?
Okay, so
I went a little wide lens there on you, but you get my point.
This goes back to like fundraising. I don't know what you call it, like theory or 101.
Yeah, exactly.
But typically, the more you give, the more time you get, because that's what we assume you need to continue giving at that specific level. There is no way on earth that you could communicate with every single donor in your database individually, one-on-one.
Correct.
But what you could do is use your database to pull some data on who's been giving the longest. And you could take 6 people out to coffee, or invite 10 people for a brief with your CEO. There are different ways to engage. You could also send out, I'm a big fan of ChatGPT, like you could write one letter, have it specified, and print it out and send it just to them. Right? You could send them a voice memo. Voice memo is my favorite way to communicate, because it's like a little more personal than
we like video too. We like little videos you could take, just thanking folks too. That's fun. Same vein.
That's because you're a man. When you're a woman and you want to make a video, it's like a whole 30-minute process to get ready. So I like, there's no filter on FaceTime. I like the voice memo. But
you're funny.
Just taking 10 minutes of your day, picking 4 lower level donors, and you don't even have to pick up the phone. Send him a voice memo. Send him like a heartfelt handwritten note. It goes so far. The truth is about events, which is what I specialize in. I believe, again, my weird ideas, I believe that you cannot have a successful event unless everyone in the room is invested. And I don't care how much they're invested, but they have to be invested. Just like Jason said, they have to have the capacity to give, maybe not at $10,000, but they have to be able to give. They have to have some kind of income they're willing to donate, and they have to have the capacity to care. Because what those people are, the bottom 20% or lower level donors, those are what I call the like water cooler, I don't know, banner raisers. Those are the people who tell the story for you. They are the people who say, guess where I was this weekend? It was this amazing gala. I had so much fun. This little girl got up on the stage and she made me cry, whatever it might be. And so those people are very important to your mission. You just have to make them feel important. Obviously, you cannot give them the same attention, but you can give them a different type of attention. And I would encourage you to stop having the richest guy in the county be your honoree. They care nothing about you. Literally, they don't care.
I love it. I think it's awesome.
And if you have any comments, questions, agree, disagree, we'd love that feedback. Abra Annes, thank you so much.
So good. So engaging.
Is it Annes or Annes? Trevor and I fight about it all the time.
It's Annes.
Annes, okay. Trevor wins. Trevor wins.
That's okay. Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor. Let us know what kind of notes you're taking. Hit the subscribe button. It'd really do us a huge favor. And we'll make a good point. We'll make a point and an effort to have you back on again, Abra. That was
absolutely.
So good.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being generous.
See everybody. Thanks again, Abra.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jay.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you love our podcast, click the download button, rate us, and follow us on social media at HTA Fundraising. Get out there, start fundraising, and raise more money. See you next time.